Hi, I'm Tori, and today I am going to be reviewing The Bestiary by Nicholas Christopher. So this is the story of Zeno, a young boy who grew up hearing stories about fantastic animals from his grandmother, and then as an adult starts researching kind of the history of mythological creatures and looking for a specific bestiary, which was written sometime in the early Renaissance or late Middle Ages, about different mythological animals. So this book that he's looking for is called the Caravan Bestiary, and there are all kinds of myths about it, rumors of its existence, and then it's been lost somewhere in antiquity. So he spends this book kind of retracing its steps in known history, trying to figure out where it is so that he can discover this amazing ancient book. So I like this book. It had a great kind of mystical feel. So the story is definitely grounded in reality, but then you'll have these kind of instances where you're not sure if maybe something fantastic did happen. This whole book just sort of follows Zeno's life from his childhood up through his adult life, and kind of it covers the origins of why he became interested in mythological creatures and why he's looking for this book so hard, and then it kind of chronicles his search for the book as well. And so throughout this whole search, while Zeno is looking for this book and he's really interested in mythology, you can tell this also has a lot to do with his family life. The whole reason he loves stories about mythological animals is that his grandmother told them to him, and his grandmother was basically the person who raised him. He has kind of a tragic life. His mother died at the beginning of his life, and his father never recovered from it, so basically his grandmother raised him until her death. So this is about kind of a very lonely little boy who latches onto these wonderful stories of incredible and fantastic animals to try to get through kind of a hard life that he's been given. So it was very interesting because this book definitely follows Zeno's search for the bestiary and different information he's trying to learn about the history of mythological animals. But then it's also kind of his own personal journey of learning how to cope with loneliness and learning how to make strong human connections and kind of find his place in the world. So my favorite parts of this story were the beginnings when he's a little boy, and all the different stories he hears from his grandmother and the amazing connections he has with her. And then I thought it was really interesting. He has a best friend named Bruno, and then that friend's sister Lena, and the three of them all kind of love animals for different reasons. Bruno and Lena have a lot of pets at their house that they're always trying to take care of, and so Zeno gets to go and watch them because he never has any pets in his childhood or later on throughout the book, which I thought was really interesting, that he's so entranced by animals, but he never has the desire to have a pet at any point throughout the story. So Bruno is very interested in learning about animals and working to kind of protect animals as a whole, and as they grow up, Bruno gets he's very academic and thinks very much big picture about animals. And of course Zeno, our protagonist, is very concerned about the history and the mythology surrounding animals, and if he encounters an animal in real life, he'll think that's fun, but he doesn't go out of his way to actually have interaction with real animals in the world. And then Lena, in their childhood, is always doctoring sick animals and trying to take care of them. And then as she gets older, she becomes a quite passionate activist, working to protect very specific animals from cruelty and things like that. So it's interesting to see these three children who all love animals so much and see how their approaches and worldviews kind of change and branch off as they get older. So I love the writing style of this book. It's not written in chapters. It's written in big sections, which will have this fun little design and a section will start. And then there will just be little clips of writing. So you'll just see a little section, it'll have a little star at the top. And there'll be, the story will just go on. And sometimes it'll be for 2 pages, and sometimes it will be for several dozen pages. It just depends on how long we need to follow Zeno for that period of time. And I loved a lot of the transitions between the main sections. It didn't happen every time, but a lot of the time you would have the story be going along, and Zeno would walk into a forest or something similar, and then that section would end, and the next section would begin with him walking out of a different forest in a completely different time and different place. So I thought that was a really cool device that just kind of made the story flow along in a really interesting way. When this story starts in Zeno's childhood, it's, I believe, about 1950s. And so then he grows up. So when he's a young man, right during the time of, I believe it's the Vietnam War, he actually finds himself fighting in this war. And so the book has a lot to say about kind of how people end up in these situations and what it means to be drafted by your country and not really be there willingly, and having to deal with the kind of feelings of you're in this place you don't want to be, and have you hurt people, have you helped people, a lot of feelings like that. So that was very interesting, and it was a really great perspective. I loved hearing those thoughts about it. So then as the story goes on, Zeno becomes a very serious academic researcher, and pores over every library he can find trying to track down this caravan bestiary. And the story goes on, you feel like he's getting closer and closer to finding it, and he's tracking it through history, and maybe he's almost got it. And so you'd think that the tension would be building a lot there, and we'd be being really excited about finding that. But as this happens, Zeno's personal life feels like it sorts itself out more. So that the ending of the story is almost a little bit anticlimactic, because we're more focused by the end on Zeno's personal life and less attuned to his hunt for the bestiary. And so I kind of felt like the ending, I didn't feel like the story was quite completed by the end of the book, because we didn't get that emotional resolution of this is how the search for the bestiary ended. So, because we'd just gone on to deal with Zeno's emotional life, but that didn't really have a big climactic thing either. You're just kind of watching him live his life. So I thought that was interesting, because this book, you go along and you're fascinated by his life, and then his life just kind of keeps going. There's no real dramatic conclusion to the story. So yeah, I like this book a lot. I wasn't completely satisfied with the ending, but I did enjoy the story and the writing style.